North Korea has test-fired a ballistic missile off its eastern coast. It comes as its leader is in Russia for talks with President Vladimir Putin. They're expected to meet in the coming hours. They hold discussions at a space center in Russia's Far East. The US suspects Kim Jong-un is ready to supply weapons to Moscow for the war in Ukraine. Washington has warned that any arms deal with North Korea would violate UN sanctions. Well, Florence Looi is monitoring developments for us now from Seoul. So, Florence, North Korea has launched a ballistic missile test, as we've heard. Is there significance in the timing of that?
Yes, Carrie. In fact, we're getting reports from Japanese media that it could have been as many as 2 missiles launched by North Korea. Now, it's banned by UN from launching missile tests, and yet North Korea has conducted a record number of weapons tests this year. Now, this coming ahead of an expected meeting between Kim and Putin on Wednesday. I think perhaps we could take it as an indication, or as North Korea attempting to send a signal, perhaps, that it has no intention of complying with UN sanctions. Now, as for the meeting itself, Japanese media are reporting that it will take place at a cosmodrome. This would not only be a highly secure location, but also a highly symbolic venue, especially if the two countries are going to be cooperating in the aerospace industry, in the aerospace fields. We know North Korea covets satellite technology. It wants to launch a spy satellite into space. Now, North Korean state media has given a lot of media coverage to this trip, and I think it indicates the high value North Korea places on this visit, and also perhaps a certain level of confidence that this upcoming Kim-Putin meeting is going to go well. Now, Kim himself has said that his visit is proof of North Korea prioritizing its ties with Russia. So far, he's already met the Russian Minister of Natural Resources, and also an official in charge of North Korea's economy was there. So that's an indication that trade is also going to be important. North Korea perhaps could be negotiating sending laborers to Russia. That would give it much needed hard currency. So we've heard from US officials that an arms deal could be on the cards, but now we're getting clearer indications of what North Korea could be wanting in return.
And what has the international reaction been then to this upcoming Kim-Putin meeting?
Well, we've heard US officials renew their warnings, saying even that they won't hesitate to impose new sanctions if an arms deal with with North Korea and Russia goes ahead. And in fact, we're hearing that the US Deputy Commerce Secretary, who's due to arrive in Seoul next year, says he's going to be holding talks on how to strengthen export controls to ensure that Russia doesn't get the equipment and the material it needs to use in its war on Russia. Now, regionally, we've heard South Korean and Japanese governments say they're monitoring developments in Russia very closely. We've also heard the South Korean president urge China, as a permanent member of the UN Security Council, to do more to rein in the nuclear threat from North Korea. But he also said that South Korea will draw closer to Japan and the US as a means to counter Pyongyang. Now, we know China is a strong ally of North Korea and Russia. It is also their biggest trade partner. So it has a lot of leverage. And some analysts believe that it would be key in preventing an arms deal from going ahead. Now, so far, China's foreign ministry has only said about Kim's visit to Russia that this is a matter between two nations. But some Chinese analysts say that, China views this as a reaction to the US's actions in this region. And China has made no secret of the fact that it wants to challenge the international order, something and this is a view that North Korea and Russia share.
OK, Florence Looi, thank you for that. Let's stay with this, though, and bring in John Park. He's director of the Korea Project at Harvard Kennedy School's Belfer Center. He joins us from Cambridge, Massachusetts. Welcome to the programme. Put simply, then, in practical terms, what will both Russia and North Korea be hoping to get out of this meeting between Putin and Kim?
It's a troubling development because if you look at it, it's almost like a problem-solving type of partnership. Each leader is going to be able to get very specialized problem-solving capabilities from the other. For Putin, clearly it's access to these munitions that he needs in his war of attrition in Ukraine. And for Kim, you're looking at a situation where he's tried space launch vehicle tests twice now and has failed. The most recent one, we'll see what all the specifications are in terms of what just took place. But with respect to his effort to put a military satellite into orbit, this is something where Russia can uniquely help him. And we saw that in terms of Russia helping Iran put their Kayam satellite into orbit in August of 2022. So all the pieces are there to help each other when it comes to these two leaders with unique problem-solving capabilities.
And interestingly, what might China make of this then? They have separate bilateral relations with both Russia and North Korea, don't they?
Sure, and Kerry, this is where applied history is really important. If you look at the relationship that China has developed, cultivated with Russia and its relationship with North Korea, those are really transactional relationships. They're ones where in certain instances, there's been exploitation. If you look at these long duration deals for natural resources on the energy side with Russia, China was underpaying them. And with respect to the coal trade with North Korea, a similar type of situation in the second half of the 2000s. However, the relationship between Russia and North Korea is definitely, bumps in the road, ups and downs, but there is an affinity that the two of them have. And right now in this dire situation, it looks like a type of partnership where they're trying to help each other out. That definitely doesn't exist in the respective bilateral relationship with China.
And to what extent will North Korea see this face-to-face meeting as a way of boosting its perceived standing on the international arena?
Well, there's a lot of fanfare between the two countries. If you look at the greeting and the ceremony and all of the red carpet type of treatment that Kim received when he arrived in Russia, it gives you a sense how both countries are elevating their leaders in that respect, and really is a message to their domestic populations. If anything, the secondary message is to the international community. So if you look at this type of dynamic, it looks like things are going well between the two leaders, and through this partnership, things will improve better as well. So that's the dynamic and that's the messaging, but definitely to their respective domestic audiences during very difficult times.
And given what you say, watching on, where does this leave the US and South Korea, for example?
Very difficult. If you look at it, the primary deterrence message is if North Korea proceeds with this munitions deal with Russia, there'll be more sanctions. But if you look at it, both North Korea and Russia are the subject of the most intense U.S. sanctions. In the case of Russia, there are sectoral sanctions in their energy sector. In the case of North Korea, longstanding sanctions. But in the case of North Korea, one thing that we have to look in more detail is that there's this natural experiment that took place. North Korea, since January of 2020, imposed its own quarantine. It sealed off its own border. And so if you think of the level of difficulties and hardships that ensued from that, they far exceed anything that sanctions can do. So at this particular point in time, with the two leaders about to meet, I do think the sanctions warning component has really run its course in this particular instance.
John Park, we very much appreciate your insights. Thank you.
Thank you.